We have a solution of weak acid, and we titrate it with some strong base. Let me reorganize this so it isn't so complicated, as after all, it is just a ratio. The strong base reacts with the weak acid and forms a conjugate weak base. This is a buffer. If I were doing a different pH-sensitive reaction in this solution, if any protons or hydroxides are made on accident, they just cancel out with the buffer chemicals. If I add a different amount of strong base to begin with, I can manipulate the strength of the buffer. If I add more strong base at the start, there will be more conjugate bases, meaning if a side reaction creates a lot of acids, the conjugate bases can properly neutralize the excess acid, maintaining the initial pH. If I add less strong base, there will be more weak acid, so a side reaction that creates bases can be better neutralized. Now let's look at the actual buffer graph. The yellow point represents a certain amount of strong base added to weak acid in mils, and the y-axis is the pH. As some base is added, the pH initially increases a bit, but as it approaches the halfway point, the pH barely changes at all. Around the halfway point is the buffer zone, where the pH changes very little. As more base is added, the pH barely changes still, but as we approach the equivalence point, the pH suddenly spikes. Now the solution is no longer a buffer. Past the equivalence point, it acts just like a solution of only strong base. I'll show this graph one more time, but without stopping, so you can take a look at how the pH changes over time with a linear increase in the amount of base. Now I'll mark all the important points and show how the graph will change with a different weak acid strength and a different amount of weak acid. I encourage you to play this one over a few times if you want to really truly see how it works. And finally, I'll show how the graph looks alongside the actual ratios of weak acid to the bases.